And look how he's fooled everybody. He's convinced all these people. He's such a sick man. He's so sick.
And look at how he fooled everyone. All of these people now agree with him. He's really sick. He's really sick. Lots of people pay attention when Larry David stops laughing. They were all gone yesterday when I stood outside a quiet Santa Monica office building. There was no funny grin, awkward laugh, or pretty good. A man stood on the sidewalk and stared down with tired eyes as if he had aged 10 years overnight. He shook his head and then finally said what Hollywood has been afraid to say out loud. That's not why you clicked on this, to hear some rumors. Something didn't feel right, so you clicked. This is now proven by Larry David. It's not just that Rob Reiner is gone. It's about what happened before that. It's about who knew and who didn't, and Larry David's heavy guilt that has been with him ever since. He isn't scared of the violent act itself, but of the silence that came before it. People who knew Larry well say that he had no plans to talk. There was no PR firm, no formal statement, and no carefully thought-out spin. But Larry lost it when he saw that the story was beginning to change and that lawyers were getting ready to change it. He understood that Rob Reiner could be made out to be the bad guy in his own tragedy. And with one shaky, honest statement, the whole story changed. Because big news sources are avoiding one piece of this puzzle. One awkward time that no one wants to talk about. A meal, yes, just one dinner. Just 3 weeks before the cops went to the Brentwood home of Reiner. Larry David says that this dinner explains everything. And when you hear what Rob Reiner said that night, you'll know why Larry just couldn't wait any longer. I didn't see why he should spend the rest of his life thinking that everyone he works on likes him, just helped right away. Yes, because it was silly. Yes, at that table, someone said something that changed everything. As of now, the truth is finally coming out. 3 weeks before the cops showed up at that Brentwood home, before the news went crazy, before there was endless speculation, and before the word tragedy was used so many times that it lost all meaning. Larry David and Rob Reiner were having dinner alone in a quiet little diner. There was no help, no entourage, and no one from the Hollywood elite in the room. It was the kind of place where old friends get together to talk about politics, sports, or the awkward parts of getting older. But that night, Larry says that none of that happened because Rob wasn't himself at all. Rob Reiner always makes a room brighter, always angry and loud, they always have something to say. But he wasn't really there that night. He didn't even taste his food. There was something very wrong. He watched his old friend look into a glass of water for almost 2 hours, as if he was waiting for it to tell him something. At first, Larry didn't know what to say. He tried to make fun of him to calm him down and maybe make him laugh. It had to be something to do with his health, like his cholesterol or blood pressure. It was one of those fears that come with age. Not at all. This was darker and deeper. Doug finally made Rob talk, but he didn't bring up doctors or stress. He talked about fear, not general worry or stress at work, but real fear. Fear of his own home. Rob leaned in close and said something that gave Larry chills down his spine. His voice was barely above a whisper. He stated, "I don't know who is living in my house anymore." Everything changed after that one line. The truth is that Larry tried to laugh it off. He told a joke about how kids these days never really leave the house and just hang out there. But then everything changed. Rob grabbed Larry's arm out of the blue across the table. Not mean, but badly. Lawrence says that small moment is important because Rob wasn't the type of person who grabbed people. He was cool and kind, and he always made sense. But something happened that night. He was shaking inside. Rob's grip got tighter, and he said in a low, shaking voice, "He's looking at us like we're prey, not parents." This was in the middle of a quiet restaurant. Oh God, Larry froze. Yeah, what he did makes you think about it all the time. The smile went away right away because this wasn't a crazy story or an exaggeration. This wasn't anxiety coming out. It hurt. After holding something heavy inside for too long, the man finally broke. David afterward, he said that right then. Something inside him changed, like a deep alarm went off. It was clear to him. Rob was putting his fragile trust in him, and it felt dangerous to even admit it. Like a lot of people in Hollywood, Larry had no idea what to do about what he had just heard. He didn't call anyone. He didn't ask anything else. He didn't try. He went home and tried to tell himself it wasn't as bad as it sounded. That's the part that still bothers him, because that dinner wasn't just a time for friends to complain or have a bad night. Now that I think about it, it was a panicked warning that he seems to have heard the whole time. Lawrence says he didn't say anything because he didn't think he had enough proof. He told himself that story for many years. He was able to sleep better, stay out of the rain longer, and keep doing what he does best: stay away from fights, chaos, and pain. However, Larry is now saying something very different. It changes everything. Larry says he has a new view of everything. Not as one big shocking moment, but as a bunch of small pieces that didn't make sense at the time, but now look like the beginning of a scary story. If you know what to look for, he says it's like seeing the first few frames of a movie that slowly turns into a nightmare. Larry says that there is one moment at a well-known charity event that still plays over and over in his mind like it happened yesterday. Everyone else remembers the pictures of them on the red carpet with their perfect smiles, fancy clothes, and Hollywood look, but Larry wasn't outside taking pictures. The green room was behind the stage and was very quiet. There were no cameras allowed in this room. Nick, Rob, and Michelle were all there. Larry thought that when he walked in, the family would be having a fun time, laughing, and maybe even making jokes before the event started. But that's not what he saw. He said it was tense and felt like the air was frozen. There wasn't any chaos or screaming. There was just a strange stillness that made his stomach turn. Michelle was fussing with her dress, doing normal things like tightening the fabric and straps. Not a big deal, but Nick wasn't next to her. He was not helpful. He had his arm around her. That was the only thing that made Larry's stomach tighten. Nick then knelt down and spoke to her in a whisper. Lawrence can't hear it. He missed the words, but he didn't have to because Michelle jerked her head, not just mentally, but also physically. It felt like something cold had touched her all over. Before she could even hide how she felt, her shoulders snapped back. It felt natural, like her body knew something she couldn't say with her lips. The thing that was bothering me was that I was very picky, yes, which is strange because I was really in need. Larry says that's when things changed. The room stopped feeling like a backstage area for getting ready and started feeling like a much more relaxing place. As things got more tense, a photographer walked in, and Nick turned it on right away. Out of nowhere, that perfect Hollywood smile showed up. Someone who was warm, friendly, and sure of themselves could quickly win over a crowd. He says what he saw next, though, made him feel very cold. It wasn't just charm, it was a show, a perfect act. Nick wasn't making a movie. He played a part in real life. At that very moment, Larry knew that this man came in two different forms. The public version was the one who knew how to use a camera and could light up a room with ease. The private version was the person who Michelle felt tense when they were around. I felt like I was seeing two totally different people at the same time. Larry couldn't hide what he saw. He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He didn't even check in with Michelle to see if she was okay. And now he feels bad about being quiet because he knows what most people don't want to say. If someone hasn't been controlled, manipulated, or constantly scared, they wouldn't act that way. The worst part is that Larry says other people saw it too. He's very angry now. He is furious because he thinks other people felt the same chilling energy. They quietly stayed away from Nick. They stopped asking him to come. They talked about him behind Rob's back, but no one told him. He wasn't warned. Even though everyone could tell something wasn't right, they let Rob and Michelle walk back through those Brentwood gates every night. Larry says the family's silence wasn't just to keep their good name. It kept the danger inside the house safe. People never saw the real Brentwood house, he says. People saw the big gates, the perfect lawn, the strong director, and the loved pair. It looked like the perfect Hollywood life. But Larry says that something has been slowly falling apart for years behind those clean walls. And it's not just mentally, it's also financially. No one was willing to say it. Rob told Larry about his money issues, but this wasn't like him to do that. Getting your kid out of trouble. It wasn't about some extra help or spending too much money in Hollywood. Someone said something that made the air cold: forced labor. He said it didn't begin with yelling or making big requests. It began small, quiet, and planned. But as time went on, it got darker. It wasn't just, give me money or I'll leave. It was really bad. It said, give me money or I'll ruin the family's name. Larry says Nick knew the best place to hit them. Rob and Michelle were more than parents. Their image had been built up over many years, making them a brand and a legacy. Nick, he used his love and loyalty against her. Larry says Rob felt trapped and stuck in a reasoning loop that no parent wants to deal with. Rob once told him in all seriousness, he falls apart if I cut him off. We break up if I keep him close. He said it was a forecast, which didn't sound like a line from a movie. The sound was like a man understanding that his story could no longer be changed. Larry David has been making a living for decades by finding humor in people's flaws. But what he saw,